elephant in the church. That sounds kind of weighty. It sounds a little bit meaty. It sounds a little bit like we're talking about some substance. And you know what, folks? That's because we are. Tonight we're talking about this. Y'all all do this for me. Go 3 times. 1, 2, 3. You know what you just pointed at? Actually, your skin. It was your skin technically. But there's something in there. There's a skull. There's a brain. And honestly, when you think of your brain, that kind of makes up what we like to call our mind. If you think about anything, whether it be horseradish, horses, or Keenan, you use this to do it, right? I've never thought a thought from my kneecap. Here, give me the horse. Just give me the horse. My daughter and I were playing with it earlier. You just push the button again. Avery, can you hold this horse stick? Thank you. Good man. So, we're talking about this. Those thoughts that go through your brain that you're like, oh, how'd that get there? Or, if my dad knew I was thinking this at this moment, ooh, boy. Or it could also be positive thoughts like, I am going to ace this test. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I don't know why you run before you take a test, but apparently I do. And it's fun, right? You can think to yourself, I am so about to take this girl out on a date, and it's going to be nice. Guys, don't date until you're ready for marriage, okay? You have thoughts. Logan, no, I'm not going to say that. Logan has thoughts. Logan has thoughts. Sydney is having a conversation with Grace right now. They have thoughts. They have things going through their mind. I want to read you a quote by the name of Frank Outlaw. Isn't that a great name? I have no idea who he is, but he had a great quote. Watch your thoughts. They become words. Watch your words. They become actions. Watch your actions. They become habits. Watch your habits. They become character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. Bam, Frank Outlaw. Man, he's a wise dude, ain't he? So if we break down what he's saying, your thoughts become what you say, right? You don't just say things out of your back pocket. Most of us don't. There's something going on in our brain to make us trigger the words that are coming out of our mouth, Ethan. But your words then become your actions. They become what you do. What you do becomes the things that you always do. It's like when you brush your teeth in the morning. You always brush your teeth in the morning. When you take a shower before you go to school, that means over time, you're always going to take a shower before you start the day. It's just how it goes. What you do kind of creates your habits. Your habits become who you are. It becomes your character. It becomes what you stand for. And then over time, your character kind of shapes to become the thing that you're going towards. It shapes your destiny. And it all starts here in your mind. So tonight, I thought we might address that. Because some things that go into our mind are not worth going into our mind. Sometimes we belittle ourselves. We say, you know what? Compared to Jonathan, I stink at singing. You know how many times I've said that? Yeah, several. At least 1 or 2 times. A lot. Sometimes when you're hanging out with that math genius, because we all got them, Joel, you think to yourself, I know what 2 plus 2 is. That equals 4. But I don't know. You know, it's easy to belittle ourselves in here. And honestly, when we do that, we start to believe it. Or the flip side could happen. Because it's more than just doubts. You know what also happens in our mind? The inability to be humble. It's like saying, you know what? Look at me. I'm a star athlete, and I know it. Okay? There used to be a song by LMFAO that was fun, but y'all don't know who that is? I don't even want to say the title because it's not a good title. This girl knows what I'm talking about. It just came to my mind. See those thoughts? Those thoughts. You might think to yourself, you know what? I am the very best at everything I do, and whatever I do, no one can stop me. That is not very smart thoughts. Tonight we're talking about what goes on up here. Did you know that that can be a great place of spiritual warfare? You know there's an enemy out there, right? An enemy that's out there to kill, steal, and destroy you. His name is Satan. He does not like you. He does not want you to go to heaven. He does not want you to have a relationship with Christ. He does not want you to believe that you're powerful and can be used of God to do incredible things. He's out there. And you know what he likes to do? One of the easiest ways to push down a Christian is to start here. To put in a thought in your head that says, hey, you're not worth it. That says, hey, you didn't deserve what Christ did on the cross for you. Saying, hey, you can't do it. You're not smart enough. Hey, you're not talented enough. You can't tell your friend about Jesus Christ. You know what you did last night? It's those thoughts that were not placed in your mind by God, but rather they were the enemy. And so knowing that, we must be prepared for a battle. 2 Corinthians 10, 3-5 says this, for though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to God. I like that last verse. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And check this out. We need to take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. How many times in this life have we had a thought that we knew if we said out loud, God would disapprove of? You don't have to answer that question. How many times have we thought something that we knew we shouldn't be thinking? How many times have we known what our thoughts were and how they were wrong, but yet we keep thinking them? And we play a movie in our head. I think we've all found ourselves there before. I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I like to have arguments that will never, ever take place in the real world in my head. I think to things like, okay, this person, he's going to walk up here, and I'm going to say this. And he's going to say this. So I'm going to do this. And I play those out in my mind, and I know they're wrong. And honestly, some of the times the arguments that I have in here never happen in reality. It's like I think it, but it's in here. I don't know if you've ever been like that. Growing up, I played sports, played basketball, played football, loved every minute of it. I know a lot of you guys are athletes in here tonight. If you play a sport, raise your hand. That's just about everybody in the room. If you do something else, raise your hand. It's fantastic. That's pretty much also everybody in the room. So everybody's in the room with their hand up. And in sports, what you do, your coach will tell you this, and it doesn't really make sense as a freshman in high school, but it does make sense as a senior. They say, hey, I want you to visualize the game on that bus ride over to Wills Point or Chapel Hill or Canton, which those are all East Texas towns. Y'all probably never heard of those. But I have. I know where those are at. And your coach says, visualize what's about to happen. And so what you think, you're like, okay, this is how it's going to go. This guy's going to go here, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to jump, I'm going to catch the ball, I'm going to run it back, I'm going to score a touchdown to win the game, right? Or I'm going to run behind this screen, going to catch the ball over here at the three-point line, and like LeBron James, going to shoot it and drain it from half court or the out-of-bounds boundary, right? We visualize these amazing moments. One thing I have never visualized is me saying, you know what? I've got to be guarding this guy, and he's going to go here, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to fall, and he's going to catch it. He's going to run for a touchdown, and we're going to lose the game. Never thought that. I'm sure people have thought that, but yeah, visualizing the game, visualizing what's about to take place. What our coaches wanted to do is fight the battle up here before we ever stepped out on the field to actually do the things our coaches ask us to do. In life, it's not the worst thing to apply that same concept. We need to do spiritual warfare in here, saying, devil, you're not going to get me down. Devil, you're not going to belittle me because I know who I am. I know I'm a child of God. I know he created me on purpose for a mission. I know there's a reason why I'm here. I know I'm nothing without him. I know my righteousness is of filthy rags if it wasn't for him and what he did for me. But the reality is, I believe in Christ. He makes me holy. He makes me righteous. I can do anything he set out for me. Unfortunately, most of the time, we think the opposite. We have those thoughts placed in our mind by the devil, and we say, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'm not good enough of a leader. We say, you know what? Maybe we can't accomplish the things that I thought God telling us we could. We say, you know what? I think this tennis team is even better than what I am. We say, you know what? I can't sing that choir note. Nope, too high. It's too high. We have these battles that go on in our head. And even more, you're going to really relate to this battle. God told me to speak to my friend about Christ and sitting here at the lunch table, and I just don't feel like I'm good enough. I just don't have the words to say. My testimony is not strong enough. We have these thoughts, and so it keeps us from what God is telling us to do. We have bad thoughts. If we were to be open and transparent in here tonight, we have bad thoughts. I'm sure for a couple of students that sang on stage tonight, they probably walked up here and said, you know what? What if I miss? What if I make myself look like an idiot? What if something bad happens? We all have had these thoughts. It's not unique to me. It's not unique to my wife, the leaders, or even yourself. We all have had these thoughts. In Matthew 5:21-22, you have Jesus speaking. And he's speaking on the idea of hate. Because let's face it, sometimes before we ever even act, hate begins here. And I think that's why things like racism are such a problem. Because we believe it in here before we ever apply it out in the real world. And we begin to justify. We say, you know, it's okay. My grandfather was like this. It's okay. 100 years ago, they were all acting like this. But just because we can justify it in our head, it doesn't make it right. You take the issue of hate, which Jesus is going to address here. And although it might start in here, that doesn't make it okay. You have heard it said to people long ago, you shall not murder. And anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. You've heard that a long time, right? You've heard that ever since you were a little kid. When Mufasa kills... Yeah, when Scar kills Mufasa, man, that could have been good, but it's all right. When Scar kills Mufasa, let's face it, we all thought that was wrong, right? Every single one of us. Murder's wrong, it's obvious. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with his brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, is answerable to the court. And anyone says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. What's Jesus saying here? Is he saying that it's not okay to get mad? Not exactly. But what he is saying, it's not okay to hold a grudge. It's not okay to take that anger and hold it captive and let that anger burn inside you toward that person for a long time. It's not okay for you, although you don't act it out and actually physically hurt someone, it's not okay for in your mind to say, you know what, I hate you. That's not okay. And Jesus is addressing that in this moment. Hate does not start as a physical action. It begins in your heart. It begins in your mind. And we've got to take measures to guard against that. We've got to take measures to guard against anger, to guard against self-worth, to guard against impure thoughts, to guard against things in our head that we would never say out loud. It's a big deal. Tonight in the Old Testament, we're going to look at a story of a man named King David. You know this story. If you've been in church any time at all, you've probably heard this story. And it's sad. King David was a mighty king, a powerful king, a man after God's own heart, a guy who could do no wrong, it felt, a guy who treated leadership properly, a guy who wouldn't kill when given the opportunity to kill. He could have took this crown a lot earlier in life than what he did, but he waited for God's timing. He cared about God. But even he probably had impure thoughts. And in the scene I'm about to describe tonight, Joel, we're not actually going to see these impure thoughts. But as I talk about the story, I think you're going to notice that they probably existed in this moment. 2 Samuel 11, 1 through 5. I want you to know even the mighty can fall. Okay? There was no one too good not to fall into temptation. King David was mighty, powerful, the top dog, but even he was subject to sin if not careful. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. It's okay to walk around on the roof. You know, as a little sixth grader, I was climbing on the ladder to the top of the roof to look out. You know, don't do that. Don't do that. I don't want you to fall and hurt yourself, but my dad was watching me, so it wasn't as big of a deal. Don't do that, Keenan. Don't do it. You have a 2-story house. Don't do it. So walking around looking, that's okay. I mean, I go around on walks looking at nature all my life. I see the trees. I like the trees. I see the dog. I'm like, I want a dog. Why don't I have a dog, Bree? I say, you know what? It's fun being outside. But then something happened, and he made eye contact with something he never should have seen. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Then David sent messengers to get her. He came to her and slept with her. Then she went back home, and the woman conceived and sent word to David saying, I'm pregnant. Sad moment in history. I don't like this moment in history. It's utterly sad. What's going on in this scene? David was supposed to be off at war with all of his buddies. That's what kings did in the springtime. They went off to war. All of his buddies were fighting in this war, including Uriah. And he was just sitting back, relaxing, eating a cool pop, drinking some Kool-Aid. And he decides to go on a walk on the roof. While on the roof, he's looking around, looking at his beautiful kingdom, and he spots someone without their clothes on, and he's like, it goes through in his head. You know? I don't think he ever acts if it doesn't go through here. I don't think David was just like, oh boy, let's go. David saw, David thought, and because of him justifying his sin in his mind, he went into action. Now, I can't claim to understand what he was thinking. I don't know if he thought, I'm King David, I can do whatever I want. I'm the king. I can have whoever. I'm the king. I don't know if David thought, I deserve this. I don't know if David thought, it's okay if I just dabble in sin a little bit. I don't know if David thought, no one's going to know. No one's going to find out. I don't know what was going on in David's head, but I promise you, we've probably been there too. Our friend is asking us, hey, Dustin, let's go egg our professor's house. And you start to justify it. You say, you know what? If I did this, he's never going to know. I'm too fast. I'm too quick. I was running a 4.7 in the 40-yard dash at this time. I'm too fast. No one's going to know. Those thoughts are not okay. We say to ourselves, you know what? If I just stand up, stretch, and as I'm stretching, I look at my neighbor's paper during the test, And then I sit back down and I write down C because that's what they answered. No one's going to know. I'm just stretching. It looks obvious. Or you say, you know what? Got my cell phone. I can delete my search history. No one will know. And you look at something on your cell phone you know you shouldn't. You justify it in your mind first before it ever happens in real life. That's why we need to take captive our thoughts and make them obedient to Jesus Christ. That is why we must say, you know what? We must guard our mind because it starts in our mind before we ever actually do it. That's why Jesus says, if you have hate in your heart, it's just as good as murder. It's the same thing. We must guard what we see and hear. The proper response for David would have been to look away. But in reality, he probably looked again. And then he thought to himself, this would be okay. You know what happens after this? It's utter chaos. He brings his friend Uriah, they're actually friends, brings him back from the war so that he could have relations with his wife. But he refuses because all the men were out at war. And he said, why should I have this when all my buddies are fighting? No, I'm going to stay here and go back to the war the next morning. So you know what David does? He says, okay, if you're going to do that, that's fine. We're going to put you on the front lines where you're surely going to die. And that's what happens. Sadly enough, David also loses this baby because of the sin. It's heartbreaking. Bad things happen because of the choices he made, and out of an attempt to cover it up, he just continued to make bad choices. Let that not be said of us. Let us not justify in our minds that sin is okay because sin is never okay. Let us not justify in our minds that anger is okay because it's never okay. Let us not ever justify in our minds these bad thoughts because these bad thoughts were never yours. They were placed in your mind from the enemy, and we need to make those thoughts subject to who Christ is, to what he stands for, and to what he's all about. Romans 12:2 says this, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. You know what I've noticed? We truly do need a mind transformation, a complete overhaul. We need a mind transformation. It starts here first. So we need to get this under control. Your mind is a place of spiritual warfare, and you will be tempted. A bad thought will come into your mind, and you're going to think to yourself, why is that there? How did that get there? I'll have to ask. What are you putting yourself to view that those thoughts could come into your mind? I want to share with you kind of a quick thing of what's happening this week in my life. You ready for this? I'm reading a book. I encourage all of you guys to read books. You know, you've always heard it said, readers are leaders. But let's be honest, I don't enjoy reading. I enjoy reading the Bible. I enjoy studying the Bible. That's different. But I don't always enjoy, picking up a book like Harry Potter or picking up a book like Dragon Tales or The Rainbow Fish or whatever and reading it. I don't always enjoy that. But this week I started reading a book and it's really caught my attention. It's called Pilots Also Pray by, how did I get his name wrong? I want to say Tom Harmon. I think I butchered his first name. But he was a former Heisman Trophy winner for the Michigan Wolverines. He has one chapter about football. The rest is about war. So I'm reading this book, and I'm getting into it. I'm already at like page 100, which is a big accomplishment for me. And I just keep going back to it because it's a cool book. But at nighttime, going to be real honest, I can't sleep. You know what I dream about? Flying a plane. Getting lost in the jungle. Because this man, he's in the plane, he's flying to World War II, and his plane decides its wing would fly off. So he is going down into this jungle. His life is about to end. Somehow he jumps out. His parachute gets caught in a tree, and he blacks out. When he comes to, he noticed the ship that he was on, the bomber that he was on, started like shooting out the bullets, started exploding. And he's like, if I don't get off from this tree, I'm going to die right here, right now. Thankfully, he gets out of the tree. He goes over to where the ship was, saw a couple of his buddies. They were goners. And he was calling out for the rest of his team, hey, guys, where'd you go? Are you around? Are you here? Did you make it okay? Silence. So he decides that I got to go east. Because if I go east, I can make it to the ocean. I can find civilization. I can get help. So he starts trekking through the jungle in South Africa for like 6 days without water, without food. And he's got to climb up mountains. He's got to climb through swamps. He's got to try to make it to that coast. One moment he came to this swamp it was just too much for him. So he said, well, I'm going to go north. So he goes north and he actually finds somebody. It was the luck of the draw. It just happened to happen that way. And his life was changed. And so all night last night, as I'm trying to sleep, that's what I'm thinking of. I wake up briefly and I'm like, how did Tom do that? I got to do the same thing. Or, man, I don't want to be in this jungle anymore. Get me out of the rain. I'm not even in the rain. Because of what I'm putting in, it's kind of where my mind is going when I'm trying to rest. What you put in your life matters. If you're viewing things on Netflix that are rated R and things you shouldn't be seeing, that stuff's going to put bad thoughts in your head. If you're looking at listening to music on the radio, yes, I'm going there tonight, that's not uplifting, that doesn't build people up, that cusses left and right, that talks about women in a degrading manner, I'm not surprised when these thoughts come in your head. If you decide that for whatever reason you're going to open up the internet and look at pornography, you're not going to like the mental warfare that's going on in your mind after that. If you're always hanging around negative people, guess what? You're going to have negative thoughts. Those are just some examples on what we can put around our life to make us have these bad thoughts. Now you're saying, Dustin, man, you're crazy. There's nothing wrong with watching a rated R movie on Netflix. Okay. But when they start taking off their clothes, or when they start shooting people up left and right, when they are showing their rage, and there's bloodshed everywhere, and you wonder where these thoughts are coming from, I don't think God is putting those thoughts in your life. I just don't think that's the case. We need to be weary of what we put in our life. We do need a mental transformation, but here's the thing, it's going to take God to do it. It's going to take God to do it. I can't force my brain to think right. I wish I could. I wish all the positivity in the world can help my brain to be on the right path. The reality is, the only way I can have a mind-renewing experience with God is to spend time with Him and to seek out what His pleasing and perfect will is for my life. I want to read you another scripture verse in Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. We overcome our mental temptation by focusing on God's goodness. If you want a mind transformation, you know what we got to focus on? Who God is, His goodness, what He stands for. We overcome our mental temptation by focusing on God's goodness. I want you to win the battle of your mind. I do. I don't want you to have to continue to face those thoughts from 1992. I want you to be better. I want you to grow. I want you to develop. I want your mind to change. If we want that to happen, we must begin to meditate on God and who He is. How do we do that? We pull out the Bible. We read about Him and His character. We think about how good our God is. Considering we will be mentally tempted, we must develop a good battle plan. If you know that you're going to be tempted, you know what you need to do? Develop safeguards in your life to help you, to inspire you, to push you forward to be better. You know what kills negative thoughts? Anybody? It's going to be a no-brainer. positive thoughts. You know, if we think to ourselves, I'm failing this test, guess what? You're probably right. You probably will. If you think to yourself, I'm dropping this pass, guess what? You probably will. You're probably going to drop the ball. If you think to yourself, this girl will say no when I invite her out on a date. Again, don't date till you're ready for marriage. But if you believe the answer is no, you're probably right. So how do we combat that? We think about who God is. We say, you know, and I know I might not feel like the greatest powerlifting warrior of all time, but God says I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. That must mean I'm enough. When we feel the devil saying we're going to fail, we remember, well, at the end of the last days, we know that Christ defeats the devil, so we're on Christ's side. That means we win. We say, you know what? I'm going to be a sinful person every day for the rest of my life. We've had those thoughts, and we think to ourselves, you know what? God didn't only come to forgive me of my sins, but he came to deliver me from the power of sin. That must mean we can overcome this. That's how we do it. We think about who God is and who he created us to be. We kill those negative thoughts by making those negative thoughts obedient to who God is and his will for our life. Are you encountering stress? Well, know that God will provide for us. Always. Might not always know how, but he always provides. If I could have someone come to the piano tonight. The enemy is out to steal our joy, to rob of us. Let me say that again. The enemy is out to kill us of our joy, rob us of our salvation, and honestly, he's good at what he does. Therefore, we must start winning the battle of the mind. The elephant in the church, that is our thoughts. We must do something about that tonight. I don't want you to give in to sin, but I know that some of you are already thinking about it. What you're going back to, your home. You can defeat those thoughts because God has given you the power tonight. We know the devil is good at what he does, but we also know Christ wins at the end of the day. Christ is all powerful, and he can give you what you need to save the day. Your brain is a great tool to remember things most of the time. Sometimes I question that in my own brain, but that's all right. It's a great tool. It's a gift given to you. Your brain is better than just about 90% of things on this earth. I don't know that stat to be true, but we are the ones who created the car. You know, an elephant didn't do that. We are the ones who created this idea that we could jump in a metal tube and fly through the sky. Never seen a monkey do that. We are the ones who was given authority on this earth to watch over the animals, to plow the field, to take care of what's been given to us. We were given that responsibility by God. A dolphin has nothing on that. We're smart. We were given a gift right here. And it would be a shame if we don't use that gift wisely. Tonight we need a mental transformation. Tonight we need God to speak to our mind.